Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. This is Shakespeare, a course, an advanced course at the Islamic University of Gaza English Department, attended by students studying English, minoring in either literature, language, education, or translation. We had two introductory classes on Shakespeare, the man, Shakespeare, the playwright, Shakespeare, the poet, what it means to study Shakespeare and why Shakespeare. Today, we start with Hamlet. In this course, we'll mainly study two plays, uh, Hamlet and Othello. Hamlet is the play we are going to start with. We'll have some kind of an introduction, again, talking about Hamlet, the play, and also Hamlet, the character, and why it is considered by many people to be the greatest masterpiece of all time throughout time, place, and culture. One tiny piece of information I like to usually start with when I talk about Hamlet is what I mentioned earlier, but I have to say it again here because we start with Hamlet today. The fact that Hamlet is everywhere, the fact that at any time around the day, around the year, there is someone talking about Hamlet or studying Hamlet or attending a class in Hamlet or watching Hamlet or rehearsing or acting or producing or quoting or cursing or thinking of Hamlet or dreaming about Hamlet and all these crazy things. And it's true. If you go, for example, to I don't know, to Twitter and you search for the word Hamlet, you'll see how many people are always talking about this particular play. It is indeed considered to be the greatest art of work, literary work of all time and place, not only in the English language. Of course, there will always be people who say no, there are greater works than Hamlet. There will always be people who say, do not compare apple and banana because Hamlet is a play. Don't compare it to a poem, for example. Don't compare it to a novel, short story, or an epic. Regardless, we are about to start our journey into Hamlet. And I usually say that I pity people who study English and don't know much about Hamlet, or at least don't study Hamlet, or at least don't know much about Hamlet. So this is what it is. As I promised, this is going to be hopefully interactive, interesting, also diverse course where we will be trying to do something for those who are interested in translation or those who are interested in drama and acting and presentation or voiceover and everything. Already one of your friends, I forgot her name. What's her name? What's her name? Dima. Is it Dima or Dina? She recorded a presentation. Are you there? She recorded a presentation and sent it to me. And I really loved it, loved the initiative, and I loved the idea. Is that Dima or Dina? Who did that? Are you there? Khalifa? We have Khalifa, right? Okay, ما حدا بده يعترف بالعملية. No worries. You can always confess later on. So in the future, think of yourself, and this applies to all the courses you study. Think of yourself as what you want to be, or think of plan A and plan B. I want to be a writer. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a university professor. I want to be a translator. I want to be a voiceover. I want to do doublage. So, and this is significant to start early, at least in year 3. So you have year 3 and year 4 to try to focus your study and your studies and everything on the field or fields you want to major on. So if you want to do voiceover, try to record yourself reciting some of Shakespeare's soliloquies or scenes. Try to act one scene here or one scene there. Try to translate if you are interested in translation. Try to translate and show it to me. Tell me that I'm going to do this or that, and I'll give you feedback for it. So there is some kind of flexibility on some of the activities you want to do. And again, I encourage you to choose activities you are into. So Hamlet. And if you notice again the title here, there are two Hamlets, right? And I told you about this, and this is significant to tell. There is the Hamlet between inverted commas with a single inverted commas, quotation marks, or double, and there is Hamlet without. The one without is the name of the character. Like when you write your name, you don't have to use, brackets or inverted commas. But the one with the inverted commas with a single or double is the text itself. Okay, so when you write, do this so I can I understand you correctly and you express yourself correctly, whether you mean Hamlet the play or Hamlet the character. When you write, usually you don't say Hamlet the play, Hamlet the character. But when I talk to you, because you don't see the writing, I either do Hamlet like this, so you understand there are quotation marks, or I say Hamlet the play or Hamlet the character, or I leave it to the context. So Hamlet is a masterpiece. It's basically the play itself, but it could also apply to Hamlet the character, how its creation is a masterpiece. Hamlet is usually identified by so many icons, so many images, so many some symbols or archetypal images. The most important of which is this skull. We'll come to this later on. If you Google image Hamlet and you look at the pictures, it's mostly people carrying somebody, the actor carrying a skull and pondering and meditating or thinking, or this beautiful thing about Hamlet. We'll talk about this later on. We'll see how there is some kind of misconception here, because people think that this is the time when Hamlet said his most famous soliloquy, Shakespeare's most famous line, to be or not to be. That is the question. But it's not. And by the way, I asked the students this question last year. I told them when Hamlet carried the skull, he was soliloquizing to be or not to be. This is incorrect. Okay. So Hamlet is always old and always new. It keeps giving. It's a play, like we said, that keeps giving, that is now, even in the 21st century, considered to be the greatest literary work of all time, despite the fact that thousands and thousands of amazing masterpieces were written and produced. So the story of Hamlet itself, the story, the plot, what happened, somebody killing his brother and then marrying his mother-in-law and then stealing the crown, is said to be a story that happened in the 13th century. It first appeared in France and then came to Elizabethan England around the time Shakespeare was starting his career in the theater. Now, some people say there was an earlier edition of Hamlet, a play written early called Ur Hamlet. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It's called Ur Hamlet. This is Hamlet, the first edition of Hamlet. And critics don't agree on who exactly wrote this. Some people think it's Thomas Kyd, the amazing tragedian. And others said, no, this is Shakespeare himself when he was young. He wrote it, and then later on, like kind of 15 years later, he improved it into the Hamlet we have. But we don't have this text. It's lost. And we probably mentioned this. We said that Hamlet consists of a little over 4,000 plays. Hamlet, what's his name? Hamlet himself speaks 1,500 lines. That's almost like half the play is for Hamlet. Does he talk a lot? We'll see. Is he talkative? We'll see. Is he a man of words, rather than deeds, actions? We're going to see. And if you want to compare, there are plays by Shakespeare, whole plays that are about 1,500 lines. Yani there are whole plays that are as long as the lines Hamlet spoke. Macbeth has 2,500 lines. Macbeth, the character, has about 700 lines. Yani Hamlet has double the number of lines that Macbeth. And this shows how interesting this. But again, some people will complain that this is a long play. Oh my God, I don't want to watch a play that goes on and on for like 3 hours. And yeah, some people hate Hamlet because of this particular reason. But despite the fact that people think that some think that this is long, they still also confess that every time they watch or read or look at Hamlet, they find new things, they find new ideas, new lines. I don't consider myself to be a Shakespeare scholar or Hamlet scholar. I love Hamlet. I am into Hamlet. And every time I teach it, every time even the students write answers or tell me about Hamlet or express their ideas about Hamlet, they quote things that, oh my God, I've never heard this before. I've never seen this before. And that's why this is one of the beauties of Hamlet. It keeps giving, it keeps giving. And the play contains a wide range of characters and discourses that are memorable, that we can usually relate to. The title character is a prince. He's a son, he's a stepson, he's a scholar, he's a university student like you, he's a poet, he's a fighter, he's a friend, he's a lover, and he's a student of drama, or he's a dramatist himself. So that's why many people consider Hamlet to be an enduring, praise it for its enduring popularity. Its popularity is always there, and its artistic exuberance. It has this variety of artistic value. It's always popular. It's rich and also varied with characterization, with themes, with dramatic devices, with its language and poetry. In other words, Hamlet as the play is never a dry play. It's interesting, it's exciting most often. And one reason why it's popular is the central character, the title character, who is Hamlet. For every playgoer or reader who finds Hamlet a prig, many people think Hamlet is a prig, somebody who dislikes everything, or a coward, or a bully. There will always be people, and look at this, who would identify with Hamlet, will find common ground, shared pain, shared interests, shared concerns, shared experiences. Whether you are male or female or Muslim or non-Muslim or Palestinian, or whether you're living now or lived 100 years ago or 200 years ago, there is something in Hamlet that relates to all of us. He's a universal character. So Hamlet fascinates us, and also and that's the beauty of this character. If you look back to cartoon, what's your favorite cartoon? Think of your favorite cartoon. The good character is always good, too good actually. The bad character is always bad and too bad. And it's easy for you as a kid to identify with this. But with Hamlet, he fluctuates between good. He's basically good, but he does bad things sometimes. For God's sakes, he kills somebody. And again, this is where we raise the question of, oh my God, Hamlet, I just identified with you. Why did you do it? Would I do the same thing were I Hamlet? So he fascinates us. He also frustrates us because we can't define him. And if you think of this carefully, again, some people will hate this because they want a character that you usually, like if you ask you a question, is this good or bad? You say good, bad. But if you say, is Hamlet good or bad? You're like, okay. Generally, basically, but, and that's the kind of, isn't this true in real life? Isn't this what happens to most people in real life? Even sometimes our parents, you love them, but sometimes like, mom, dad, or your best friend, you like her, she excites you, she's always there for you, but she usually does things that would frustrate you. So this is a man who's passionate about things. a man who wants us to be passionate about things, a man who cares about the theater, a man who's excited and tested by language, and who loves language like we do, who studies language like we do. He is a man full of energy. He mints and creates ideas very quickly, even before and quicker than other people. Unlike we feel on many occasions, he feels sad. He feels forlorn, sad, and dejected. Feels isolated, feels important sometimes. In brief, Hamlet is a person of today, of modern life, a man confused and distracted by many things. He's not just a man with a mission, with one mission. زينا احنا اليوم عندنا 7 مواد وعندنا امتحانات وعندنا كويزز وعندنا اونلاين وعندنا فيديوهات وعندنا تسجيل وعندنا تلخيص وعندنا تويتر وعندنا الفيسبوك وعندنا انستغرام وعندنا واتساب وعندنا like oh my god, we have our friends and our families and our classmates and our teachers and so many things in so little time. And this is why Hamlet is way ahead of his time. Now, Hamlet, moreover, Hamlet urges us to think. He's a person that, again, provokes us to think, to be thinkers, to think carefully about what we do. Look at this example, for example, this statement, this quote. He says in Act 2, Scene 2, line 239. Listen, when you answer questions, you don't have to remember the act and the scene and the number of line. But if you're doing research, you need to do that. Okay. When you quote anything, you don't have to quote the exact thing. Okay. So don't worry about that. It's good to know them, but you don't have to memorize the exact lines. So look at this idea, beautiful idea. You can quote this and use it on social media. I'll start the social media thread tonight. For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And this line has confused scholars. It's still confusing. What does he mean? There's nothing good or bad. Thinking makes things either good or bad. What does he mean? Does he mean things could change if we think about them carefully? Because sometimes we see things, sometimes we don't. I don't know. We'll come to that later on. So this means many things. But one significant thing we need to take from it is the fact that he urges us to think. It's about the necessity and also the excitement of thinking. Thinking is necessary because when you know something, that's not the end of it. There is always more things behind. It's like when you are studying English. If you are year 1, you need to keep studying and keep studying. The more you study, the more you think, the more you work, the more you know. And this becomes a necessity and excitement. In other words, in brief, Hamlet urges us to think. And also, Hamlet is a family drama. It's about family. It's about brothers. It's about parents. It's about sons and daughters, the husband and the wife, and the sister and the daughter, and the stepfather. And it's also about friendship, sometimes protected, respected, sometimes betrayed. And Hamlet is also about the nature of duty. We have a duty to ourselves, to our fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, to our stepfathers, to our country, for God's sakes, to God, to our religion, to truth. And the problem is that when these contradict each other, if you have a duty to God, what happens when your father is not doing a good job in terms of religion and being good to God, or your mother, or your friend? There are so many issues in Hamlet about the society and how these issues could change because the society is changing. Now, there are two interesting things here before I move to the next point. Hamlet is fascinating in so many ways, but two important things make Hamlet on a league of its own. The characterization, the characters, how they are complicated. When I say complex or complicated, it doesn't mean no one can understand. It means it's not easy to judge. Like I just said, is Hamlet good or bad? Is Ophelia good or bad? Is Gertrude good or bad? You can't simply say good, bad, good, bad. You need to think and consider many things. So this is a complicated person. The characterization, the profound characterization, and the impeccable language. Impeccable means perfect. يلا تعالي الترجمة. After this, you at least you have 50 new words and expressions. Enjoy. It makes Hamlet on a league of its own. And even today, 400 years later, Hamlet still excites us. Shakespeare intensifies and dramatizes colorful, memorable issues and people and ideas. The question is always raised. There are so many questions, but the most important question is who are we? Who are we? Who we are and why? Where do we come from? Where are we heading? What's next? What happens when we die? Is it the end? And the degree to which it is possible for any individual to share these investigations with others. We need to form these ideas. The focus shifts continually in the play between complex and serious and beautiful game Shakespeare has set in motion between the text and the audience. It's like Shakespeare is teasing the audience. There's always this shift. The audience understands something, likes something, loves something, and Shakespeare gives more. When you keep digging, you keep finding more. Before I move to the second point, please, somebody raised her hand. Somebody is typing also. Say what you want to say, please. Go on. Somebody raised her hand. Was it Wala? Do you remember what you want to say?
Yes,
Go
I
on.
raised my hand regarding the point where you said that Hamlet, like we can't judge Hamlet, and basically that's like the style of the characters when Shakespeare writes his characters. For example, I remember in Macbeth too, like we could not. Sometimes we relate to Macbeth, we feel sorry for him. Other times we feel like he's a bad character. So I believe like that's the most interesting thing about Shakespeare's writings. Like you relate to them, although they are sometimes bad.
Okay, that's really interesting. And you will you will usually find it difficult. You can't tell which character Shakespeare likes and identifies with. He's always objective. He's always in the background. He's objective. Many people try to write to find evidence to relate Hamlet to Shakespeare. Say, oh, maybe Hamlet is basing the whole thing about Hamlet on himself. He is Hamlet, but there is no strong evidence for this. Reem?
I want to ask, why do we consider Hamlet as the greatest? Is it only about the characterization of the characters? For
It's
example, if we want to judge Macbeth, for example, the characters are also within the gray area. As Wala said, we sometimes sympathize with Macbeth. Sometimes we said he is bad. He did want to. So why is Hamlet?
why is Hamlet? We'll have to spend the 2 months, the two coming months, or a month and a half, and examine that. But I just mentioned many of the things. Hamlet is way ahead of Macbeth. In many ways, many people think that Macbeth is a simple play. There's a good man who kills the king, becomes the king, and then kills many other people so he can remain the king, and who is deceived by three witches. Allah يكون عافية. But not Hamlet. It's not that easy in this regard. طيب. What do critics think of Hamlet? I'll talk about two critics, and I'll give you a task, an optional task if you want to look more. So T.S. Eliot, and look at this. T.S. Eliot is, The Wasteland, one of the greatest, April is the cruelest month. He's a great critic. He believes that Hamlet is Shakespeare's masterpiece and he's Shakespeare's best play. But he says that Hamlet is مش بس an artistic failure. Some people usually say Hamlet is a failure. No, he didn't say Hamlet is a failure. He didn't say Hamlet is an artistic failure. He didn't say Hamlet is certainly an artistic failure. He said Hamlet is most certainly an artistic failure. Wow, he must hate this play because T.S. Eliot had this idea in mind about objective criticism. يعني تعال, we have 1, 2, 3. If we don't find 1, 2, 3 in the play, in the text, it's not a good play. It's a failure. So he says, and I'm quoting him here. He says, in several ways, the play is puzzling, disquieting, it's confusing, and it's long. He hates the fact that it's long. One more thing he hates about Hamlet is what we call, we'll see this later on, the subplots. You know, we don't have one plot. Sometimes we have an what's it called, a digression. You know, digression, شوية هيك استطراد, and he comes to the play. He calls them inconsistent scenes, and the versification is variable. The poetry is not the same. It's not all poetic throughout the play. I don't know. You could be one of those people who think that Hamlet is an artistic failure, and we'll see how, in my opinion, and I'm quoting other people in a bit, that T.S. Eliot is most certainly wrong about Hamlet. But the points of weakness he sees in Hamlet are actually points of strength, are reasons why Hamlet, if you want the literature to be a one-way, following objective rules, that's not good literature. طبعا الغريب, really, sometimes this is crazy. يعني T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland is like Hamlet. It's the Hamlet of poetry. And one reason it is a masterpiece is because it is puzzling, disquieting, very long, and has inconsistent scenes, and the fact that the verse is variable. خد يا T.S. Eliot, يلا يعطيك العافية. I don't know why people do these things sometimes. Now, this is a commentary on what he said, explaining it. I just did. Now, Harold Bloom, the guy we love very much, the Shakespeare and the Invention of Human, he says Hamlet's total effect upon the world's culture is incalculable. It can't be counted. Of course, he's basically talking about culture, Western civilization, America, Europe, England. And we quoted this before. After Jesus Christ, Hamlet is the most cited figure in Western consciousness. No one prays to him, but no one evades him for long either. You will always study him. You will always read about him. You will always have to use him to try to understand him, because people always refer to Hamlet. And he replies beautifully, and I highlighted it in red here, to T.S. Eliot. He says, in other words, he says, if Hamlet is most certainly an artistic failure, what literary work then is an artistic success? Huh? If this is a failure, what literary work then is an artistic success? In other words, there is no artistic, there's no text that can be described as an artistic success if we don't consider Hamlet to be an artistic success. So the task, I'll post this on the group. I'll share the slides on Moodle. Don't worry, you don't have to take notes. You could take notes if you want to, but the things on the slides here, PowerPoint, they are yours. I'll give them to you. So the task number one, I want you to Google what other people or critics think about Hamlet, either the play or the character. And I want you to choose one person who likes Hamlet, who finds Hamlet to be interesting, and Hamlet, the play or the character, and tell me why you like it. So you tell me, this critic says this and that about Hamlet, and I think this is, this could be one reason or another. So again, this is to Reem and every one of you. These are issues I'll come to back later on. We'll find many themes and many issues and many things in drama, in language, in poetry, in issues, in characters, in problems, in crises that we relate to, that we would love. For example, we'll see an issue about identity, and I'll raise the issue, how can we as Palestinians, men or women, relate or identify with Hamlet? We'll see about this, searching for identity, the politics, the resistance, the fathers and the sons and the old and the young, and the occupiers coming, the aliens. About truth, there are issues about truth that, want us to think. how life could be subjective, how facts could be subjective. The play is also about telling stories. We'll see how the story, the whole play begins midway with something that had just happened or has just happened. And we'll see who tells the story to whom and who's missing and what's missing and how much of the story is told. We talk about this beautiful thing. We'll see how Hamlet has always been appropriated, appropriated, adapted, changed, where, for example, Hamlet is a girl, Hamlet is the girl, and Ophelia is, the man, the boy. Interesting things. Keeps giving. We talk about comic relief in the play, the tragedy versus the comedy. We'll talk about women, about Ophelia, Gertrude. We'll talk about Ophelia's mother. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the play. Where is Ophelia's mother? She's missing. And in literature, remember, if something is there, it's there for a reason. If something is not there, it's not there for a reason. So if the mother is missing, she's present in her absence. We talk about that. We talk about how the world is viewed as a stage and the people as. We talk about victims and victimizers and framing. We'll see this. The dramatic devices of soliloquies and asides and puns and plots and subplots and comic relief and open endings and abrupt openings and irony, dramatic and verbal. We'll talk about reception, especially the reception of the play and its performance. We'll try to compare some of the activities you could do or the presentations. You could compare, you could watch two plays, two productions, and you compare. But remember, I'll talk about the presentations later on. Please, when you do a presentation, you have to be very, very, very specific. Okay? Meaning, if you want to compare two productions, مثلا إنتاج هاملت 95 و 2001. I'm not sure about there are many productions. You'll find them on YouTube. So you don't have to compare all the play with the other play. No, you choose one thing. You compare the asides, the soliloquies. You compare the questions. You compare the opening, the ending. You compare Ophelia, Ophelia's death, Gertrude. Talk about this later on. So I'm giving you this before because I want you to think of them as possible issues we'll discuss, and also as a topic for your presentation. Everyone has to do a presentation. Now we'll see Shakespeare in cartoon, in pulp culture, in memes, and I just ask you to be active on the memes thing. Hamlet in Palestine, I just mentioned this in a bit. We'll talk about, when we were learning face-to-face last year, we had an amazing debate. I suggested a list of debates. Is Hamlet mad? We'll talk about this. Hamlet versus Gertrude. Hamlet and Ophelia, who's to blame? Women's death, when women die. Why do women keep dying? What does it mean? Okay. Now, before I start, again, I'll ask you another question. This is the map of the play, the characters in the play. There is Hamlet here. That's the main character. His mom is Gertrude. Okay. His father, what's his father's name? Do you know?
Hamlet.
Also
Hamlet.
Hamlet. So there is young Hamlet and old Hamlet. Now, when the play starts, like some of you guessed, the father is dead, and there is the ghost of Hamlet's father. Now, Hamlet is in love with Ophelia. Ophelia's father is Polonius. Her brother is Laertes. Now, Hamlet's uncle, his father's brother, is Claudius, who is now, when the play starts, is the king who married Hamlet's wife. And then we have here, sorry, it's not that clear, there is Horatio. Horatio, look at the name, how it's pronounced. Horatio is Hamlet's best friend, university classmate. And then there are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Not many characters. Hamlet, his father, his mother, his uncle. Ophelia, her father, her brother. Horatio, the ghost. And that's it, basically. And there are other minor characters will come back to. I already gave you a PDF copy of the book. It's the Cliff's Complete Shakespeare's Hamlet. I hope you had a look. You printed it out, photocopied it, or borrowed it, or bought it. If you have a look, there is a lot of commentary and critical commentary and criticism before the act, or on the on the explaining difficult words or allusions, etc. on the right or the left, and then below each scene and each act there is an amazing critical uh, uh, summary, usually giving beautiful ideas. I will try, because of the corona and everything and the online teaching, I will try to limit my ideas to the things on in the book. So if you read before me, if you want to read more, you're always welcome. Go online, read articles here and there, books. I can give you books if you are interested, if you want more. But if you focus on the stuff in the play and the videos, you will be good to go. Type. I'll give you something to say, but also I want you to tell me what the question I asked on Facebook. How do you think Hamlet is going to begin, to start? The first scene, how is it going to be? Tell me what you wrote, if you still remember. And then if you have a question, go on, so we start the first scene. Yeah, somebody, what did you guess?
Can I answer, Doctor?
Yeah, go on.
I think the watchmen were sitting and they saw the ghost.
No,
And,
Asil. My question,
yes.
thank you for answering. My question was, what did you guess? I didn't say how does it start. I want to see what you guessed. Like if you know nothing about Hamlet, yeah, just you read something here, a summary there, because I told you a little bit about it in the introduction, what happens, the story. But I want you to tell me what you guessed, how it's going to begin, not how it really begins, because what you say is exactly what happens. Go on, Arid.
Before I started reading it, I thought that it would start by Hamlet sitting. He is now an adult and he's remembering his childhood. He's thinking, what is the reason behind his father's death?
Wow, that's really good. Very good.
It
Interesting.
was,
Can I add?
Interesting idea. Someone else?
Yes, Doctor.
Go on.
Can I add?
Yeah.
My answer about this, Hamlet with his mother are sitting, just thinking, where's his father disappeared or something. Just thinking.
Okay, also beautiful. So there is again Hamlet. Thank you very much, Asil. One more.
Yes,
Can I-
doctor.
Go on, Hamad.
Yeah, I think the play would start with a flashback or maybe recalling some old past moments, which would, be helpful to understand what we are probably going to see. And the
Who who
second guess was,
who is doing the flashbacking, Hamad?
of course, Hamlet, the son.
Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe the second guess is that we can see some sort of media res where Hamlet's father gets killed anonymously, and then the play's conflict kicks off following his murder to investigate and has, the actions that had happened behind his back.
Okay, beautiful. One more. People who are typing, do you want to speak or do you want me to do the speaking for you? Because you don't have to speak if you. One more before I read the comments.
Actually, I was seeing Hamlet as a minister. Like till now, when I hear the name of Hamlet, like his very strong name, like Hamlet. Yeah.
But that's not the question, Ahmed. You need to focus on the question. The question is, if you didn't read the first scene or act, how would you start Hamlet if you are Shakespeare, if you were Shakespeare?
As I said, a minister lead the war maybe with an
Okay,
army.
so you want to show us Hamlet? Are you talking about Hamlet the father or the son?
Hamlet the father.
Okay, so you want to show a bad king in war, fighting. But remember, if you are fighting, if you are in a war, you could be defending your country. But still interesting. I'll read a couple of comments here. Amal says, I wrote that it may start as the whole family having dinner, discussing some issues, which is obviously before King Hamlet dies. Interesting. You think about Hamlet's childhood and about his life in general. Noor says, interesting also. Reham says, I think that it will begin with a speech of the author by telling us a major action. Yeah, this happened in what was that? Christopher Marlowe. There is always a prologue, somebody who says, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then that's Reham, and then Marah says, I think it will start when Hamlet's uncle tries to hide his crime. Also interesting. Bisan says, I guess the play will start by a scene leading to the idea of taking revenge. So it may begin with Hamlet's father's ghost, like Hamlet thinking. That's also interesting. Very good, Bisan. Yasmin says, I guess that the play will start in the presence of the body of the father and the young prince in mysterious circumstances of the murder. Wow. I love these ideas. Interesting. You should be dramatists. I think if you start writing plays, you can make probably other masterpieces, so people can compare them to Hamlet. Uh, who else wants to speak? One or two, quickly. Go on.
I wrote that it would start with the action of Hamlet's father is dead, and then Hamlet starts searching for the real killer.
That's interesting. One more.
Okay, can I?
Go on. Yeah. Yes.
I think that I haven't read Hamlet yet, but maybe that Hamlet ghost, the father, came to Hamlet and asking him who's killed me, and bumping in her mind that to looking for who killed him.
Who has killed the father? Okay. Who has
The
killed?
father, yeah.
Okay, Hamlet the father. One more. There is Nahil here commenting, saying, I think the play started in a discussion that will take place between Hamlet and his mother, talking about the grief and the death of the father. That's beautiful. Finally, Mariam.
Okay, I think it's like as simple as I think that he just one came to Hamlet and tells him that your father is dead and you have to return to your homeland to stand by your mother, and that's it.
So it starts somewhere outside Denmark, because this is all Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. That's the title. It's taking place in Denmark,
Yeah.
but Hamlet is outside. Where outside? Is he in Shujaiya?
No, I think he is studying in somewhere else, right?
At the Islamic University of Gaza.
Maybe.
Okay, so he's studying.
What term?
Okay, he's studying in a German university, and then he gets the bad news that your dad just passed away. Come back. Okay. Now, these are really, really beautiful ideas you suggested. Interesting how, if you want to rewrite Hamlet, where you want to start it. But let's compare what we. But again, I'm not talking about the language and the writing here. I'm talking about just the idea of where to begin. Now, when you go to Act 1, Scene 1, there is Elsinore. That's a platform before the castle. There's a castle, the king, the monarchy, and there's the platform up above, the watchers, the guards. There is Francisco at the post, and then there is Bernardo. And if you look at the dialogue here, Bernardo, Francisco, Bernardo, Francisco, Bernardo, Francisco. Most of you said, okay, there is Hamlet, there's going to be Hamlet, or there's going to be the ghost. But there's no Hamlet here. Hamlet is nowhere to be seen. And that in itself is interesting. If you go to watch a play with Hamlet or Macbeth, you expect the first scene. Of course, this doesn't have to happen, but you expect to come face to face with the main character, with the title character here. Right. Before we begin, What do you notice here? Remember, the language, the way it is written, the poetry, lack thereof, they all matter. So look at this. I'll give you 1 minute. Look at the language, look at the dialogue. What do you notice about anything, about the language, the words, the choice, the speakers?
Yes,
1 minute.
could I?
1 minute.
The,
1 minute.
yeah.
You have 1 minute. Okay, raise your hand. Wala.
Like by just reading it, it's like there is tense. I mean, like the sentences are so short, and then there is this dialogue, so you just feel tense, like you continue reading because of the shortness. Like,
Okay, and okay, thank you very much. One, before I noticed something Asil typed here. Thank you, Asil. He says it's the same Merchant of Venice. It doesn't start with the main character or something. It's really good when you connect plays that that you studied or things you read or movies. Connection is always linking is always good. When I ask you to look about the things you notice, I want you just to look before you read. What can you see? What can you see? Short sentences or phrases, and then two people are talking quickly. I think we go until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When somebody spoke 2 lines, it's all one line, half a line, half a line, even 1 word or 2 words or 3 words. Okay, Dina, what else?
Can I add, Doctor?
Dina, raise her hand. Reem, raise your hand when you do you know how to raise your hand?
Language,
Okay, Dina, go on.
maybe language is a blank verse, unrhyming verse,
Okay, so
and
there's no, but is there verse? Before we talk about blank verse and unrhyming verse, is there verse?
No, there's no.
It doesn't seem
maybe
like,
not.
at
No.
least until this, like the first part here, till line 7. There's no poetry here. There's somebody, many people type there's prose, prose, prose. Yes, simple language, prosaic rather than poetic. Asim says prose, I guess it is prose. Blank verse, later on, we'll see blank verse. Like when we come to number 10 here, this is blank verse. Okay? It's poetic, but it doesn't rhyme. Who else wants to say something about this?
Yes, doctor.
Go on, Ahmad.
Okay, I would say about the language. He used old language, like he used some old words like the, which means you. Also, there is many question marks, if you notice.
Okay, there are two things here. There are two. Did anybody notice, like Ahmed, the question marks?
Yes.
Not complete questions.
And also
The question
the
mark.
shape.
Ahmed.
Yes.
Don't be greedy. When I say one idea, you go for one idea, not three. You already
Okay.
did two. Okay, so
I'm sorry.
number one, excellent thing to notice, Ahmed. There are so many question marks. How many? Can you count? 1, 2, 3, 4 in one page. Wow, that's a lot. The other thing, Ahmed,
Five question marks.
where are they? 1, 2, 3.
In the last line.
4, 5. Exactly. There is one in the last line. 5 question marks in just almost half a page. And Ahmed said he's using Old English. Of course, he's going to use Old English because he was living 400 years ago. So tis the, this is the nature of the language. حتى دير بالكم, this is not the language the text Shakespeare wrote exactly. This is a little bit modernized. Probably I can show you where you can compare. But we're sticking with this text. It's simpler, it's easier. But the old words like thee and tis and thou will remain, and comes and hath, because they are important. So one more point, Mariam, briefly.
Okay, from the first, there's like enter to him, Bernardo, like the verb before the subject.
That's not Shakespeare's language usually. This is stage direction. معروف في الستيج direction. enter Bernardo, حتى بيستخدموا مفرد. يقولش enters Bernardo, enter Bernardo, exit Bernardo. So this is stage direction. There isn't much stage direction, by the way. All we know is Elsinore platform before the castle. And there is, where is the iambic pentameter, Marah? Where is it? Not sure about that. I didn't look
Can I say
myself.
something?
Doctor, I noticed another thing.
Ahmed, no, stop.
Okay.
You already mentioned two ideas. Give your friends a chance. Let's have more people to participate. Don't be greedy. I'm happy that you want to talk more,
Okay.
but let's.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm not sure about the iambic. I don't think there is iambic pentameter that flows. You come most carefully upon the upon was. I'm not sure. I don't think this is not poetry. So if it's not poetry, it doesn't flow. At least the first half. Okay. Yeah, Wissam, Shakespeare didn't write the stage directions. That's right. We're not sure about much of the stage direction, but I don't know about the Elsinore platform before the castle, whether this is Shakespeare or not. Reem?
Yes, I want to say that this scene starts and ends with the same sentence. Who's there? Who is there?
Okay.
The language shows that.
That's not the whole scene. That's not the whole scene. It just happened عشان بس الوسع في الصفحة. So thank you.
Yes.
يعني
The language shows that
you could have said something more interesting.
They are confused as if they are waiting for someone.
We'll come to the discussion later on. First question is, what do you notice? Okay. And then we comment about what the things we notice. So you could have said that there is who's there and there is another who's there. Okay. So there's who's there and then who's there. Two who's there's. So people are asking questions, and the question, remember, I just said there is the question, who are we? So I'll do the commentary here. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Ahmed, who gave us really good ideas here. The opening line, in my opinion, is one of the most significant lines in the whole play. Who's there? So these are guards. Somebody is guarding the place, and he's in a way fully awake, but it's dark. He doesn't see because it's dark. So it's cold, it's dark, it's the castle, somebody is watching, there's Hamlet is nowhere to be seen. And he hears some voice or noise, somebody approaching, sees a shadow, says, who's there? And then Francisco, and I love this, look at how accurate and beautiful this is. The other man, Francisco, says, no, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. تعرفوا في العسكري بيقول عرف نفسك. When he said, who's there? He didn't say, I am Francisco. He said, no, who's there? And then there is long live the king. And I don't know why this is a question mark. Long live the king. ايش دخل long live the king؟ فأنا بقول برناردو he يعني yes. Long live the king. ايش يعني long live the king؟
الله يطور بعمر الملك.
يحيى الملك. ليش ايش دخل يحيى الملك في who's there? Can you guess? Somebody, did you read anything?
Password.
It's a code word. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Some of you have clearly read this. So كانوا يعني بيقول له كلمة السر. مش عارف ايش بيسموها في العسكرية انه like there's a code word. So هقول لك ابعت لك بنا شخص. I'll send you somebody. You will know him. He wears this and that, and the code word is long live the king or phrase. So long live the king. And again, it should be long live the king. لما قال له unfold yourself, عرف عن نفسك، قال له long live the king. It's like a question but doubt. He's not sure about the password. Or he's not happy with the king. He doesn't want to say long live the king. I don't know. We'll talk about this later. So he, for example, says, you come most carefully upon the hour. That's good. The guard is really good. He wants to protect his country. He wants to be on time. And it is now struck 12. So look at how Shakespeare is telling us the time and the get thee to bed, Francesco. روح تريح, go to sleep. For this relief, much thanks. Thank you. ريحتني. Thank you. ما طلعوا على much thanks أيام شكسبير. لا ما حدا يقول لي much thanks. Many thanks. It is bitter cold and I am sick at heart. يعني البرد قارس and I am sick at heart. قلبي بيوجعني. تألم في قلبي. And the beautiful thing here again, Bernardo doesn't say why. Explain it to me. Talk to me. No answer is given. No explanation is given. Have you had a quiet night, guard? How's the guarding? Not a mouse stirring. And this is the beautiful thing about Shakespeare. The answer could be, have you had a quiet guard? Yes. But Shakespeare would always say, not a mouse stirring, to be poetic and metaphorical in this beautiful way. Some people hate it, some people love it. يعني ولا فار تتحرك يعني, because he is a good guard. And well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcella, so there are two other characters. Don't worry about the names. Yani, if you confuse Bernardo and Francesco, don't worry about that. But try not to. Then Horatio and Marcellus. So if you see Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste. Tell them to come very quickly. I think I hear them. And he's expecting two people, Horatio and Marcellus. And he says, stand, ho! Stand where you are. Don't move. Who's there? Who are you? And what a fantastic opening. It doesn't seem Shakespearean or Shakespearean or Shakespearesque. It's a beautiful, it tells so much about the play. There is darkness, the poetry, there's no poetry, the language doesn't flow, people are in doubt, they're not sure about the password, the code word, they're not sure whether to say long live the king or not. It's very cold, it's very dark. The foreshadowing here, somebody is sick at heart. There's no reason, no explanation is given. It's left to us, the audience, to think of a possible reason why this person is sick at heart. And then they tell us two people are coming, Horatio and Marcellus. And in the next scene, Horatio says, there's interruption there, what has this thing appeared again tonight? Thing, I highlighted this, it's my bolding here. I have seen nothing. And then Marcellus says, Horatio says, there should be colon here. Horatio says, it is but our fantasy. It thing. What are they talking about? Nothing is clear. We don't know. Again, this is the dramatic, intensity here, the suspense created. What are they talking about? It. What is it? Is it a bird? Is it a cat? Is it an animal? Is it a creature? And so Horatio says, so the guard saw something, and Horatio says it's our fantasy, our imagination, and will not let belief take hold of him. He's not going to believe. And then Horatio confirms at the end, he says, Tash, it will not appear. Yeah, Rajil, yeah, Sheikh, it will not appear. Emphasizing this idea that it is a thing rather than a human being they are expecting also. I'll stop here, but again, just to summarize, first scene starts with a question, an interesting question of who's there that is repeated. So many questions later on. Can somebody count how many questions there are in the first scene so we can start with this? And somebody, there's no poetry here, it's prose, The language doesn't flow. There's no explanation. It's cold and it's dark. And most significantly, Hamlet is nowhere to be seen. And he isn't even mentioned, at least in the first 3 or 4 pages. Okay, maybe I'm sick at heart. Ahmed said is a foreshadowing. Yeah, thank you, Ahmed. There is a lot of foreshadowing. The darkness, the lack of explanation, the questions without answers, the doubt, the uncertainty about long live the king. Okay, and again, people saying we saw it, we saw it. Two people saying we saw it, the thing, and then Horatio says, "Tush, tush! It will not appear. It's only your fancy and your imagination." I'll stop here. For next session on Tuesday, inshallah, we'll complete scene 1, and I want you to start. I wanted to finish scene 1 today, but I said, okay, let's slow it a little bit down. Scene 1 and scene 2 for next class. Thank you. If you have questions, we can continue on Facebook.